አድማጮቻችን በዚህ በፋርካስት በሚባለው ፕሮግራም አብራችሁን ስለቀረባችሁ እናመሰግናለን። ጥያቄና መልስ አቅራቢያችን ዳንኤል፣ ቢንካርድ እና አሌክስ ሃምብሬክት ይባላሉ።
Well, for those of you listening at home, that was Ted Tewahade delivering our normal introduction that either Daniel or myself gives, but that was in his native language of Amharic, right, Ted?
That's correct. That's the main language spoken in Ethiopia.
And so could you translate that into English?
The summation is welcome to the FARcast program, and I introduced Alex and Daniel to the program, and my name is Ted Tewahade.
Well, there we go. We've kind of reversed roles a little bit there, Daniel.
But welcome, Ted.
Yeah, thank you, Ted. That was quite the introduction. Something unique we haven't really had happen on this podcast before.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Ted, for those of you who don't know, is the Title IX coordinator at Chadron State College. Ted, tell us a little bit about your job as the Title IX coordinator.
My job essentially is responsible for ensuring Chadron State complies with Title IX and responds and investigates discrimination complaints. In a nutshell, that's my job.
Ted, what type of training do you provide current students?
We separate training. We always meet with first-year students. By that, I mean freshmen. As part of the freshman orientation, we kind of tell them what the expectations are expected of them from Chadron State College, how to behave, what policy we follow, 30-20. I kind of go through that and explain what 30-20 is and what the process of the Title IX investigation is, who are the mandatory reporters and confidential people are. So that's what we usually start out with, and we follow and meet with every athletic team, clubs, Senate and CAB, new faculty, and then we also do an online Title IX training as well for all our students and employees.
So a very important job, and Ted certainly does a great job and helps CSC along with that. But he's also involved in the campus community. He's the sponsor for the International Club. He mentioned just a little bit ago that he grew up in Ethiopia. But talk a little bit about the International Club and how does CSC support international students, something you're kind of familiar with?
As the co-sponsor of the International Club, I get the pleasure of meeting with and working with a lot of students. We're about 34 countries, I think. 34 students. I'm not sure exactly the exact count of countries we have right now, but we meet every week right now because we're getting ready for our annual International Food Tasting Party. And for those of you who don't know what that is our students will cook dish from their own countries. We work with our dining services, trying to get as authentic as possible and cook up and invite a lot of people. We usually serve about 200 students and community members, and we have to cut down the dishes to about 14 to 15, so that it's easier to cook with. Otherwise, we usually have to cut down about 5 or 6 out of the list provided.
What are some of the memorable meals that you've been served at that event?
Last year we had a Brazilian dish, and it was fantastic. Ariel cooked it, and it's interesting with a lot of our international students. A lot of the male students will do the cooking, so it's kind of role reversed a little bit. Especially our South American students, the male and students from. Last year, we also had a student who brought his parents to cook from India. That was amazing. So they cooked some traditional Indian food, and it's always a sellout.
Neat.
So how many people end up at that event?
200 to 240, about 100, half and half, 120 students, 120 community members. And then usually we have a fashion show, traditional music. We collaborate with our Job Corps, Pioneer Job Corps, and they bring in a lot of, majority of their students currently are from Asia. So they do a lot of Thai dances and so forth. So it's pretty neat. We get to learn a lot from them as well. And this year we're looking forward to inviting our WNCC international students.
Very nice.
Yep.
Yeah. So Ted, you're an alum of Chadron State College, but you ended up a little bit of a longer route than most students take to get here. Can you tell us a little bit of that story?
The Tewahade family has been part of Chadron State College since 1988. And I've had 6 uncles. I went through the list the other day. 6 uncles, 2 brothers, 4 cousins, 3 nephews, and family friends as well that came here. The first person to come here was my Uncle Naaman, and I actually went back and read the story that was covered by Con Marshall from 1988, and the article was Ethiopian brothers attending Chadron State College, and the first person that came was Naaman, and in fact, when he came to Chadron State College, it wasn't by design. He was in Oklahoma at the time, and he had a Chadron State alum that was dean in Oklahoma, and his daughter was enrolled. The dean's daughter was enrolled in Chadron State College. Was going to, so she was on her way here. Naaman just rode along with her, and he was going to visit Chadron and then go on to Rapid City to fly to California for school and work and so forth. But the dean had contacted somebody here at Chadron, and when he got here, they met him and offered him a scholarship and had a campus job. So he came here and never left. So that's kind of how our family started at Chadron State College.
That's wild. Just one small thing,
Yeah.
like some gesture like that made 15 people come to school.
Exactly. So in fact, it was interesting. After the first 3 or 4 came, back in Ethiopia, my family is, you go to America, you go to Chadron State College, it wasn't even accepted. You go anywhere else. My younger brother had a scholarship to a pretty prestigious school in England, and automatically it was said, nope, you go to Chadron State College. So we beat an Ivy League out. That's what I always say.
And so then, but some people who might know you but may not know everything about you might be interested to learn that you went to high school in Chadron too.
Actually, I did, yeah. I left Ethiopia when I was in end of my sophomore year, and went to Pennsylvania for a year. And then my brother was attending college here. So my senior year, I did come to Chadron High, and was really blown how nice people were. Just very approachable, just genuine. And then attended Chadron State College. From Chadron High School, you were expected to go to Chadron State, and came here. Did my undergraduate in legal studies, and did an internship in the summer at a law firm. Did not like it. Came back and got my master MBA, and then went back to the workforce for a little bit, and then met my wife when I was going to school here. I actually had a dance at the karaoke/dance at the ballroom. So Chadron's been good to me.
Absolutely. So what you mentioned, you majored in legal studies, and then you came back and got your MBA. Mm-hmm. What did you do after you graduated?
I graduated and got a job in finance in Denver, Colorado. We moved to Denver and did finance and worked. Stayed about 3 years. And both my wife and I started careers and realized that this is not what we wanted to do. Numbers wasn't our thing. So we decided to sell everything we had. And then we traveled some, went to Uganda and Kenya and Ethiopia, and worked a little bit with Habitat, building homes. And when we run out of money, we kind of give us time actually to ponder what we want to do the rest of our lives. And we both wanted to be in service, working with people. So I knew I wanted to teach and work with students in schools. And she knew she wanted to finish her master's in counseling. So came back again to Chadron once again and got my teaching endorsement, and she finished her master's, and then taught a year in Oryx, which is 30 minutes from here. That was my first teaching job. And then we moved to Southern Colorado, and where we started a family.
So, Ted, you mentioned a little bit about your work history between college graduation and ending up here at CSC. Any more you can tell us about that?
In Southern Colorado, that's where we pretty much started our careers in education. And then I was teaching business and technology, and then moved more to the technology side of things. And then when our girls were getting a little bit bigger, we decided we actually used to vacation in Chadron State Park. So every time we'd come down every summer, we'd say, we should move back here because it's so much quieter. You get to spend time with your kids and so forth. So we made the jump and just came back here, and we've been here 7 years now, going on 8, and it's been the greatest move we've done. Kids are flourishing here. when I came back, I started my Chadron State career as working in IT. And then through that, I also was working with Title IX, helping out with that. And then eventually, Title IX job came up, and I applied for it. And it's been 3 years now, and it's been quite the learning curve, but it's been an amazing journey.
Great. Yeah. Well, you mentioned kind of taking that jump. You've done that in your life a couple times, moving to southern Colorado and then selling everything and traveling overseas with your wife. But clearly, the first one, or maybe not the first one, but one of those jumps in your life was living in Ethiopia and then moving to the United States. Talk a little bit about some of the differences.
Well, that's actually was helped by the situation that was going on in Ethiopia at the time. This was 1990, 1991 in Ethiopia. Times were pretty rough as far as there was a new government trying to come in, and it wasn't a peaceful takeover. It was a hostile takeover, and there was war going on. So if you are a teenager, a male, anywhere between ninth grader to a senior or a college student, there's a good chance you might end up going to the military, and that's not voluntarily. You might just, if you looked old enough to go to the military, you might just go to the military. I had an opportunity came up where my dad's former college friends were living in Pennsylvania, and they put my dad in contact with a school that I could attend. So they offered me an entrance, and I was able to go there. So that's kind of made the jump. But it kind of knew once you make that big flight here, you're pretty much on your own. So a 16-year-old, barely just almost turned 17, you are on your own. So
I don't think I would have done very well.
Yeah, that's quite a jump.
Well, it's one of those things. Once you're in the situation, you kind of there's no plan B.
Right, you have to keep going forward.
You just got to keep going forward. Yes.
Sure.
Ted, tell us a little bit about but before all that, growing up. What's childhood like in Ethiopia compared to what you've seen with like your daughters here?
That's a great question. Looking back as an adult now, looking back at my childhood, it was great. It was fantastic because I think you stay a child longer than you do here. Obviously, you have your friends and growing up together. Everybody's about the same socioeconomic. So whether you're poor or rich, nobody knows any different. So we played soccer all the time, and everybody played soccer. So it was more of the communal upbringing than individual. I had an opportunity to go back to Ethiopia a year ago now. As an adult looking at it, it seems to me here in the U.S., it feels like everyone is racing or competing, and if you stop, you're not moving up. So that's. And then when I looked at Ethiopia, they actually stop and enjoy life. When they actually said hello, how are you? They actually mean how are you. They expect a response, not you're just nodding. So that's one of the few things. Time feels like 12-hour day there, feels like 24. Here, a 12-hour day feels like 5. That's the main difference. People, I think, stop and enjoy life a little bit there.
Do you have any ideas on why that is?
I don't know. I really don't know. I try to get a response and try to ask questions. Of course, they didn't understand why I was asking because it's a norm there. And here we race. Yeah. Everything has got to be done. And we have a lot of great inventions to save time, but it feels like we have shorter time.
Yeah, I think you're certainly right with that. It always seems like you're in such a hurried pace.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to just sit around and hang out and ask people how they really are doing and have a conversation.
Yeah, even like your question as far as comparing my kids to my upbringing, looking at a 5th grade kid there, they are actually just 5th grade kid. Looking at my daughter who's in 5th grade, it seems to me that we're preparing her for 6, 7, 8 right now. Right. Everything she's learning is so that she can compete later on. So I think that's the main difference is we're preparing them, kind of a little more pressuring them to start, same as my 9th grade daughter. She's already preparing for college versus an Ethiopian kid is learning about 9th grade. Mm-hmm. So that's the main difference as far as upbringing.
You're also a volunteer firefighter, first responder in Chadron. How long have you done that, and what made you want to do that in the first place?
That was a decision that we made deliberately before we moved back to Chadron this last time. We said if we move back to Chadron, if everything works out, one of the things we have to do is give back to Chadron because it's done so much for us. And the fire department was my goal. So when I came back and I applied, and within the 3-4 months of us moving back, I was part of it. The first thing that shocked me was how professional they were. You assume as a volunteer fire department, they're not as good as a regular paid fire department, but it's far from the truth. They are very professional, rigorous training, giving up time to do the training. So that blew my mind when I first joined and how the requirement there was. And then I've done it for about 6-7 years now, and it's a great family. They do a lot of stuff behind the scenes for this community that besides the sirens rolling, there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scene. And we have a lot of men and women that put in a lot of time.
Well, and having worked with you in that capacity where you've kind of put that hat on, it's interesting, and I gotta commend you and your colleagues at the Chadron Volunteer Fire Department and those first responders, just how calm and collected they are in those situations of heightened stress. There's a lot going on. It's really beneficial to see someone who's, okay, what's going on, and just kind of really the voice of reason. And so
it's a learned behavior because when I first joined, I was not that. I was the guy freaking out. But it's a learned behavior. You watch those that are before you, and in a chaotic moment, you see some of them rattle off 30 different commands to 30 different people very calmly, and everything's thought of. Mm-hmm. Every which way is thought of. So there's a lot of people that I look up to in the fire department that train you to stay calm and just go through the process almost as necessary tunnel vision. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of focus on that.
Yeah, I think my point was kind of, obviously I think when you kind of give back to your community, you're not doing it to really learn from it. You're just trying to help people. But I think inevitably you learn from it, and so those instances of where you've had to be calm has probably helped you professionally and personally in different areas. And I just think that's one of the great things about living in a small community is you get those opportunities to do things like that.
That's very well stated. When we lived in southern Colorado, I did stop by one time, just once, at the fire department to see if they take volunteers, and they looked at me as if I was asking for something totally unreasonable, and they just said, nope. That was the end of that. Mm-hmm. But when he came here and you still asked, they take you with open. Even when we were full, when we don't have openings, they will take people's names and phone numbers, and they call them back when we have an opening, and nobody's turned away. They also take some of our college students, knowing that the maximum service those college students will give is 3 years, because usually they don't come until after their freshman year, and they pay for their trainings, give them, whatever support they need, and then send them off to their own community. So you learn a lot from. I think I've learned as much, if not more, than it's that I've given back.
Great.
So, Ted, outdoor activities. So we've got some notes here that you're an avid runner and bike rider. You've been riding in the bike ride across Nebraska. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I don't know if I'd say avid runner, but I do enjoy to run. That's my outlet, I think, is running. I'm proud to say 14 years in a row, I've run one way or the other half marathon. So try to get that streak going. Some years it's hard. I waited till December 23rd last year to get it done.
Hey, that's my birthday.
Yeah. Still get it in, though.
Yeah, so, but I feel like if I break that streak, it's not that's gonna be the end of it. But I do run quite a bit, and it's a good time to meditate and run and contemplate on things. So I enjoy running. The other activities is, yes, we do enjoy riding bikes. There's 5 or 6 guys here in Chadron. I like to move mountain bike quite a bit together, taking some journeys together to southern Colorado, actually western Colorado and Utah to do some of that mountain biking and road riding. But as far as brand, which is bike ride across Nebraska, when I first heard about it, of course, everybody knows RAGBRAI, the bike ride across Iowa, and it's about 10,000 people sometimes. When I first heard about brand, Like everybody else, I complained, how come they start in a different part of the states? Always starts and they never come through here, and moaning and complaining. And last year they announced they were going to start from Chadron. So it was one of those things, either put up or shut up. So when they announced that it started here in Chadron, I signed up, and it was an amazing experience. The average age I did not know was 60.
Wow.
Yeah. And amazing people you meet, and you make groups, and every night you camp with this pretty much 10 or 20 people out of the 400. So you start becoming friends, and it was an amazing experience riding through Nebraska and seeing Nebraska's small town at a slower pace was very interesting and amazing.
Is it something you're planning to do again?
Yes, we signed up again for this year, and it starts in Helmbrecht. And we're going to do the first 4 days, and I conned my wife into joining me. So we're going to do, this is going to be our first bike ride together, a longer bike ride together. So either we'll do it again together next year, or I might just be doing it solo, depending. But I think she'll have a good time. She's a pretty good cyclist, up-and-coming cyclist, as they say.
Right.
So she'll be joining me this year.
Oh, great.
So if that one will start in Hemingford, where does it end?
It always ends close to Omaha.
Okay.
And that's the 7-day ride.
All right.
Last year I did the 4-day, and I thought it was sufficient. And then the same this year. I think we're going to do the 4-day. Because once you go to 4-day, you get as far as Ord, or last year was Ainsworth, and then you're getting to the other side of where it's more traffic, and Lincoln and Omaha area. So we try to stay away from there. So,
and is that in June or July?
First part of June.
Okay, so it's still not too hot.
No, not at all. In fact, last year the evenings got chilly. But it's interesting how the communities come forward and feed everybody dinner and breakfast and lunch, and you almost overeat throughout the whole thing, because every 10 miles there's some sort of stop.
Right.
Everybody's got great pies in Nebraska, and pie and sloppy joes.
Oh,
yeah.
So if I don't eat another sloppy joe till the next brand, I'm okay.
It's when we had Kurt Kinbacher on here, he talked about cycling and eating pie too. So it must be like a cycling thing.
It's amazing,
tradition.
and you kind of look for it, and everybody makes homemade pies.
Oh, so
it's just so, and you've earned it. So you need to ride about anywhere between 60 to 80 miles a day, and stop and have pie for dinner.
Yeah,
It's
you
not
can
bad.
spare the calories.
There you go.
So we talked about bike riding and running. What are some of your other interests outside of work, Ted?
Outside of work, I spend a lot of time with my family. I have a 15-year-old and 11-year-old daughter, and we do a lot of outdoorsy things, hiking and camping and fishing. Well, we're getting into fishing now, so now that they're past the get every lure stuck in the woods stage, so they can actually fish. So we're getting into that. We're planning on doing that. So we do travel quite a bit. Try to go take the girls and see some opportunities where they don't have in Chadron, such as going to Washington, D.C., and a couple of years ago went to New York. So we try to expose them to some of the places, so bigger places that Nebraska doesn't have. So we do a lot of that.
What are some of your family's favorite destinations now, all the travels you've had?
I think our favorite one was Washington, D.C., because we spent a week there. We still didn't see majority of it, but it was an amazing time that we had there. Just took our time. One big museum in the morning, one small one in the afternoon, so you get to expose them to some history. So
good deal.
That was a pretty good time. The other stuff that we do like to camp, and I also like to. I'm not a very good mechanic, but I like collecting old VWs. So that's my downfall. Is I will spend an hour going for an hour and spend 5 hours working on my old VW. So that's what other hobbies I have. So
nice.
Yeah,
simpler, no mechanical anything, no electronics, no computers, nothing.
Oh yeah,
just simple linkage and number 10 wrench. That's all you need.
That sounds perfect. Well, Ted, I think we've come to the moment in our program where we hit we get the quick hitters. So just a kind of first answer that pops into your mind. Favorite bike ride in the region?
I would say the Cliffs. It's the same trail as the Twisted Crawdad that Donna Ritson hosts. That's probably one of my favorite trails because it's got a mix of climbing, fast descent, some water crossing, and so forth. And you can still go there and knock it out in less than a couple of hours, about an hour and a half usually, and be back home. So close enough to here, but still get nice exercise out of it.
Great hikes out there too.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And then there's some apple trees if you hit it the right time of the year.
Oh, yeah.
There's some really nice apple trees. You can just stop and have a snack.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ted, what's a favorite movie of yours?
That's a tough one. Recent or all time?
Anything, not
anything,
be absolute favorite, just anything on your list.
One of my recent favorite movies is The Green Book. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch it. It's I like history, and The Green Book was very well written, and it's a really good book.
I'm pretty sure it won an Oscar a couple years ago.
It did. Yes, it did. Yeah.
Right.
So it's historically very accurate as well, as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
Cool.
Very good. First concert you attended?
Boy, I don't know if I remember my first concert. I've been to a lot of small concerts, so I don't know if I remember the first one. But I remember the first one, the memorable concert would be my wife and I went to John Legend at Fiddler's Green in Denver, and he's amazing performer. And then another one is we went to a U2 concert down Pepsi Center, and we watched half of it because we just had our oldest daughter, and my wife was just looking at her phone the whole time expecting it to ring. So we ended up leaving that concert, but it was a good concert. So a couple of memorable concerts.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. How many times have you been to the top of Sea Hill, either bike riding or walking?
Hundreds. I don't know if I can count, but I know I've run it, I've biked it, I've hiked it with the kids, with the dogs. Our last one was during Christmas break when we had that big snowstorm. My 15-year-old daughter and myself snowshoed it up. So that was our first snowshoeing trip up it. So
nice.
I can't even keep track. It's a really nice place to be early in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Well, final question then, Ted. What word comes to your mind when you think of Chadron State?
Chadron State. When I was in Colorado, looking back at Chadron State, my memory was always in the fall colors of Chadron. So that's what I remember when I say Chadron State. It is that fall colors. The only fall color in Nebraska, I guess.
yeah. One of the few. It's certainly a great time to be around.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a good place. Well, Ted, I think that's all we've got for you. Thanks again for coming on the show with us and giving us a little glimpse of a new language for us.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks, Ted.